First and foremost, I want to definitely thank you for coming on the show. It's definitely an honor. I'm excited to hear about some of the things that you were able to accomplish. I got a chance to interview Angelo, and he told me some great things about you. And for the viewers who may not know, let them know what your name is and definitely where you from.
My real name is Don Juan Martin. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, okay, cool. I'm from Cleveland. I'm from 216.
Yeah, I had a guitar player named Joel Jackson that played with Marvin Gaye and the Spinners when I played with the Spinners. He was from Shaker Heights.
Yeah, okay, okay. That's what's up. That's Cleveland for sure. I was just thinking about, man, Ohio has so many talented musicians that, influence music and world history for that matter.
Yeah, especially from Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio, and Hamilton, Ohio, and stuff like that. A lot of entertainers came out of Ohio. A lot of music came out of
Yeah.
it. You know.
And Zap, Roger Troutman,
Oh yeah, Roger and them, and
Bootsy,
Ohio players, Bootsie, and
the OJs.
yeah, the OJs from Cleveland. Yeah, a lot of acts came from Ohio. Man, we the one started the funk.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely, man. They got to give it up for us. So it's good we, talking about some of this history so people can know about it. So let me see. My first question is, how did you even get into music?
I had an uncle that played jazz, and on the weekend he would get drunk, and my aunt would ask me to go with him and make sure he made it home safe. So I would go and listen to him play all night, and then at the end of the night I would drive the car back home. Make sure he
Oh,
got home
wow.
safe. And in the process, one night I was sitting in the club looking at all the women dressed up and smelling good, and all the guys dressed up in suits, and I said to myself, "Damn, I like this. I really want to do this." So I asked my uncle to learn me how to play drums, and he said if I learn how to set them up and break them down, he would teach me a few things, and that's what I did. I practiced setting the drums up right and breaking them down, and then eventually he taught me a couple beats, bossa novas and a little few jazz things. And then I would go around the neighborhood and watch other drummers play, like Frank Wade, my friend, and I would walk out to Lincoln Heights and watch the Untouchables, Robert Ward and the Untouchables in the window. I could stand in the window and watch them play, and then
Wow.
Robert Ward and the Untouchables became the Ohio Players.
Wow. Okay, okay. Now, what time period was this?
This was in the late '60s, you know, because I was still in high school, and I was like maybe 17, 16, and I used to walk from Avondale all the way out to Lincoln Heights, which was a long way. And I get out there just in enough time where the band played the first set, and when they played the first set, I would turn around and walk back home. Because by the time it took me to walk back home, it was time for me to get in the house, So, and then I used to listen to WRDW, uh, a Nashville radio station. I can't think of the well, any night I used to listen to them at nighttime because they played all the latest songs. So I would put a radio underneath my pillow and go to sleep listening to their music.
Oh, wow. Okay, okay. That's what's up. Now, when did you get your first break? Like, from playing like local spots to actually getting into the,
Well,
industry.
it was playing around nightclubs. I was playing with trying to play with little different bands. And I was playing with this one band called the Soul Twisters, and we would go to Indianapolis, Indiana, and play up there. And play at Madeline Walker Theater on the weekends. And that's how I really got started. And then one day, this guy called me to play with this guy named Maurice Gibson and the Mystics. And I had been playing for a while, but I haven't, got my chops up. And then, so Maurice called me and asked me, could I come and sit in at the club they was playing at and see could I, did I want to join the band? So I sit in and I got the job, and that's how I met Catfish, Bootsie, Cat, Phelps Collins. Bootsie brother, older brother, play bass, and
Mm.
and then this girl named Randy Crawford that sung Street Light with the Crusaders. She was our lead singer.
Oh wow.
So after the band broke up, me and Catfish, we stayed tight. Me and him, because he was the bass player and I was a drummer. So me and him, we got real tight playing together, and we became real close friends. So his brother Boosie was playing with a guy named Calvin Gaucher and a drummer named Will Jackson in Madisonville, another neighborhood in Cincinnati, and they broke up. So Boosie was playing bass, Catfish was playing bass. So we tried to put the band together, and Cat said, "Well, I knew how to play guitar a little bit." He said, "So I'll play guitar and let Boosie play bass," and that's how we started our band.
Oh wow. Man, that's epic. What was the name of the band?
But the first time we started, we had called ourselves the Pacemakers. It was just
Oh.
me, Boosie, and Catfish. And then later on, we hired a guy named Clayton Gunner and a guy named Wesley Maxey, to play saxophone to join the band. That's when we had like two horns and a rhythm section. And then we hired a guy named Rufus Allen to be the lead singer. And then we got rid of Rufus, and then we hired a guy named Charles Allen. And then he ended up playing with the Ohio Players as Chuck. I forget what he called himself, Chuck something. But he ended up being the lead singer with the Ohio Players, and they got rid of Dutch Robertson.
Mm. Wow.
So we one night we was playing at a club in Avondale called the Clock Bar, and this guy named Charles Sperling. You can look him up. He got a lot of records out, and he approached us about being his rhythm section at King Studio because he was the A&R guy, and he wrote songs for a lot of different artists at King Records. And he needed a rhythm section. He played guitar, but he needed a rhythm section. So me, Cat, and Boosie hooked up with him and started recording at King Records, for
Mm.
for him and other artists that he had signed up with his little thing. And that's how James got to see us all the time because we was always in the studio working with Charles. And every once in a while, James would come in and record stuff, and he'd see us in the studio, and he finally asked who we was. And then eventually he hooked us up with Hank Ballard. We started playing behind Hank Ballard, and then we started playing behind Marvin Whitney. And then
Mm.
that's how we got the gig with James as the JBs.
Oh, okay, okay. Now let me go back a little bit. Now, what was it like working with Bootsy? Because from my perspective, he always he had the colorful clothes on, he had the hats and stuff like that. Was he like that all the time, or did he kind of come
Well,
into that? Like,
he we had a one time Catfish got in trouble, and we had to get another guitar player while he was doing his little thing. And this
mm-hmm,
guy named Ricky Evans was the guitar player, but that we hired to take Catfish place while he was gone. And
mm-hmm,
Ricky introduced Boosie to this gadget called a damn, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it changed his tone of his bass. It was like a Mutron thing, and
mm,
um, so in the process, we had Ricky playing with us, and Boosie wasn't really the leader of the band. The leader of the band was Catfish, really, because he's the oldest. Boosie was the youngest cat in the band, so he wasn't
right,
no leader. You know what I'm saying? He was just a bass player in the band. He wasn't no it wasn't no Boosie rubber band in at that time. What had
mm-hmm,
happened was when Cat was gone, and we had already hooked up with George, this girl named Malia Franklin. We was playing at her mama club in Detroit, and Malia was going with the trumpet player in our band named Ronnie Greenway. So Malia hooked up Ronnie Greenway to meet George Clinton one night while we was in Detroit. And
wow,
and when Greenway got back, he said that George wanted us to be part of his organization of Parliament's Funkadelic Band. And
mm,
really, I didn't really like George. And I didn't think that we had to hook up with George, but in the process, George and Boosie got real tight, and Boosie and George had the idea of changing the name of the band from the Pacemakers to Boosie Rubber Band,
Mm.
and they got him a deal with Warner Brothers Records, and that's how he became the leader of his group, the Rubber Band. But really,
Wow.
in reality, it was just supposed to be the Pacemakers, you know.
Okay. Okay.
But they cut our throat so Boosie could get his thing. But he was never a leader. You know, he tells stories like that James Brown seeked him out and all this kind of stuff. You know, a lot of stuff you hear ain't really true, bro. You know, people make up stuff to make them sound good.
I can dig it. I can dig it. Now, what was it like connecting with James Brown? Man, that's possibly the greatest musician ever.
But you know, we changed James Brown. We made him money. We put syncopation in his music. He didn't have that till we got with him. You know, he was playing straight blues stuff, shuffles and stuff like that. He wasn't playing no syncopation beat. Ever since we started with our Cold Sweat, and once Cold Sweat got into the frame of the music thing and Give It Up, Turn Loose, Sex Machine, and all that stuff, we made James money. You know, I mean, he was a good writer. He wrote a lot of lyrics to his songs, and if you listen to him, he repeated a lot of stuff. But the band, we made up the music. I mean, you know,
Hmm.
he didn't have no charts in front of us, and we played charts. We made the music up ourselves, and he took credit for the music. Really, I mean, honestly. And then when you think about it, all the stuff that we recorded with James, we never got paid. That was part of the job when we joined him, that we would record stuff. But we all the stuff that we recorded King Records, or the live stuff when we was in concerts and stuff. James never
Mm.
paid us for recording, never.
Oh wow.
You know, and
Mm.
we joined the musician union about 3 or 4 times, and each time we went to the union, they said, "Well, James Brown, you know, he don't hire uh, union musicians, you know."
Mm.
So that was weird. So anyway, we got with James. First, we was playing with, like I said, James hooked us up with Hank Ballard, and we played behind Hank Ballard. We recorded his last album at King Records, and then at the Hank kept messing us around, leaving us and taking the money and leaving us. We had to end up calling Mr. Bobbitt that for him to send us money in MoneyGram. They told us to hook up with Marva Whitney, and we had already recorded Marva album, so we knew her songs. So we met her in Augusta, Georgia, and we started playing with her. And then when James Brown had a review show, we was like the opening act on his review show. We would play behind Hank Ballard and Marva Whitney, or we would play behind Bobby Bird and Vicki Anderson. And then he had a comedian named Clay Tyson. We would play music behind his sketch. And then later on, Mazio and them decided not to play with James, go on stage, and they wanted some more money. And that's when we was playing in a club in Cincinnati, the Clock Bar, where Charles found us. This guy named Speedy Brown, James Brown, I don't know, Yes Man. He came and found us at the club and told us that Mr. Brown wanted us to meet at a gig. So they sent his private jet to Cincinnati. We got on it and we flew somewhere like South Carolina, Columbus, South Carolina, and then they had us walk down the aisle at the stadium where he was playing at, or the auditorium. So the people thought we was late because we had our instruments in our hand. And we went to his dressing room, and he said, "Well, listen, we gonna, y'all know my music and blah blah blah. Y'all just watch me, and I'm gonna count the songs off, and I'm gonna name the songs before we play them, and y'all just watch me." So we did, and he recorded the album live. I can't think of the album, but anyway, on the one part of the album, he called me. He said, "In the Jungle, brother," because he couldn't think of my name, Tiger. So he kept saying, "In the Jungle, brother," when he wanted me to play. So
Mm.
anyway,
Wow.
we recorded that album with James, and then he turned around and looked at us, and he couldn't fit because we was called a Blackanizer band when we played behind Marvin Whitney and Hank Ballard. We was called the Blackanizers. So what
Wow.
happened was when James turned around and looked at us, he was gonna say the Blackanizer or the New Breed Band, but he said the JBs, and that was his name, James Brown. So he turned around and said the JBs, ladies and gentlemen, JBs, and so that's how we became the JBs. You know,
Oh, wow, wow, wow. So how long did you end up playing for James?
I think we stayed with James from well, really we worked for his company from '68 to '71. We quit in '71 at the Copacabana in New York after we came back from Europe. And I think we played with James for about 2 or 3 years off and on. I got fired. One year I got fired, and they sent, and I hooked up with this cat named Leon Austin that lived in Augusta, Georgia. I recorded a lot of his records, and he was James Brown' personal hairdresser, and they was, I guess, they grew up together as friends.
Mm,
So when they let me go, Leon asked me to come to Augusta, Georgia, and I went to Augusta, Georgia, and started playing with his band. He had a band called the New Breed Band, and I stayed there for a couple months. And then James Brown Daddy came to me one day at the barbershop and told me, "Come on, boy, let's go for a walk." So I went walking with James Daddy, and he said, "Man," he said, "Boy, you got to go home." And I was looking at him like, "Why? Why you want me to go home?" I was having fun living in Augusta. He's like, no, it's time for you to go home. So I told my cousin, I had brought my cousin down there with me, a trumpet player named Hank. And I told Hank, I said, damn, James' daddy told me, man, we gotta go home, man. So something's up. So anyway, James and Leon followed me they followed me in a limo, and I was walking down the street going to the bus station, and James and Leon caught, they jumped out the limo and backed me up into this the post office where the office thing was at, and told me, James was like, "Ain't nothing in Cincinnati. What you going back to Cincinnati for?" And I'm like, "Wow, this is crazy." So I said, "Well, I'm going back home because of my family, blah blah blah." So Leon told the police that I stole his drums, and Leon didn't even play no drums. So what happened was, uh, so when I was at the bus station, the police pulled up on me and told me I couldn't catch the bus back to Cincinnati until they straightened this thing out. Then when the bus left me, the police came back and said they would straighten out that the drums were mine, blah blah blah, and go. But by that time, the bus had left, and another bus wasn't gonna come for another 8 hours. So I had to sit there and wait 8 hours for another bus to come. Anyway, when I get back home, Bootsie knocked on my door and said, "Hey man, James wants you to come back in the band." I said, "Damn, I just seen him in Augusta. He ain't say nothing like that, you know." So anyway, I got back in the band. We played for a while, and then that's when we went to Europe and did live in Paris albums, and we played in Milan, Italy, and we recorded some stuff there and some more stuff. So anyway, he was gonna make Catfish the band leader when we got back from Europe because we made all the music up, and we wanted to be in charge because we had our own band when we before we even got with him. So but he ended up making the white boy named Dave Matthews was the band director when we was over in Europe, but he wasn't going to be the band director or band leader when we got back to the United States. So he made Fred Wesley the band leader. So we quit. We quit James band, and we quit the band. We was playing at the Copacabana, and we was playing downstairs in a separate club, and Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes was playing upstairs in the club. And that's when I met Teddy Pendergrass. He was playing drums. So anyway, we left James and went back to Cincinnati, and then we did a radio interview, and we started talking about how bad his business was. And evidently, I guess he heard it, or somebody told him what we was doing. And the next thing you know, he came out with a song called "The Big Payback." And if you listen to "The Big Payback," he talking about us, and he talking about the stuff that we did to him, like money, and Boosie was messing with Marvin Whitney, and at that time I think James was messing with Marvin. he found that Boosie was messing with Marva on the side while we was on the road, and it was a crazy stuff. But that's how we got with James, because we Charles Sperling hired us to play for him at King Studio, and we toured with him for a minute, doing some little chitting tours. Him and this guy named Artie Sherman and his wife named Peggy Sherman. They had a couple records at King Records. We recorded for them too. And then James hired us to record for Hank Ballard, and we wasn't even playing for Hank, but we just recorded an album for him. And then at the same time, James hired us to record Marva Whitney album. And then we recorded an album for this guy named Hal Nibley. Hal Nibley. He was the vice president at King Studio in New York, and we recorded an album for this guy named Arthur Prasad called "I Want to Go Where the Soul Trees Grow." And then we recorded Bill Doggett, Honky Tonk Popcorn, because we had recorded an album, a record called Popcorn, Part 1 and Part 2, maybe even Part 3, I think. And it was a hit. So when Bill Doggett came to town, the kind of music he was playing, so we added syncopation to the old song that he did, and we called it Popcorn, but it was something else. It was like Honky Tonk Popcorn. I think that's what it was called. But we did a lot of stuff at King Records, man. And then, like I said, we met George in Detroit because of Maya Franklin. I guess she was singing with George at the time. And the trumpet player in our band named Ronnie Greenway, he took care of all our businesses for contracts and stuff, because he was the only guy in the band that had a college education. So we let him read all the contracts and tell us what they was about, and we all filled them out. And then, like I said, Malia introduced Ronnie to George, and then the next day we all went over there and met George as a group, and he was telling us what he wanted us to do, join the band as part of the Parliament's Funkadelics. And Boosie was he was all gun ho for it. And a lot of us wasn't really wanted to join, but it ended up that way. Boosie ended up getting a record deal with Warner Brothers Records, and George helped him get it. And then they changed the name of the band to Boosie Rubber Band. It was just a rubber band at first, then they made it Boosie Rubber Band.
Okay, okay. Wow, man, you shared so much information. I truly appreciate that. What was it like touring in Europe? Sometimes you hear about a lot of the musicians, the black musicians, when they went to Europe, they found life a little bit better, a little less racism. Did
Yeah.
you enjoy touring in Europe?
Oh yeah, we had a ball, man, in London, Paris, Rome. We enjoyed it. We was killing them. The band was smoking, man. We was tight. We was so tight you couldn't even cut our funk with a butter knife. That's how tight we was. And then that's why James had us with him. Because he at first he had his white band called the Daps that was at King Records, and he was gonna try to have them play behind him, and so he could cross over. Because he wanted to cross over into the white audience so he could make more money. Because he was making money with the black audience, like the Apollo Theater and places like that, but he wanted to cross over and make some big money. So I mean, so we changed the style of his music. Syncopation, man, we kill. Give it up, turn loose, sex machine, all that stuff. I feel good. We changed everything about his music. And a lot of times he recorded stuff twice or three times. Man, but the majority of the time that we recorded the stuff with him, he releases our stuff like every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks or something. And we was making money for James. We were really making a lot of money for him. And then we recorded Bobby Bird stuff, and then Vicky Anderson and stuff like that. And then when we quit James, we hired this guy named Felipe Wynn. Uh, well, his real name was Phil Walker in Cincinnati, but when he got with the Spinners, he became Felipe Wynn. So I had fell out with Boosie and them at United Records with George and them, and so I quit and I came back to Cincinnati and because we were rehearsing over at Boosie's mama uh, apartment in the basement, every day, and we lived in the same complex. Me, Boosie, Catfish, and Catfish father-in-law owned the complex that we lived in. So we used to practice there every day. So we eventually, after we quit James, we hired this guy named Phil Soul to be our lead singer. And eventually he left and went to, I don't know, he went to Detroit or something. Then he ended up being the lead singer with the Spinners. So one day Catfish came back to Cincinnati. He said, hey, they called me Bob. He like, hey, Bob, man, guess who I sing in Detroit? And I'm like, who? He said, I sing Phil, man. I said, yeah. He said, yeah. He said, tell you to give him a call because he's singing with this group called the Spinners that used to be with Motown. And I think they need a drummer. So he said, call him so you can see what's up. So I called Phil and he said, yeah, Tiger, man, I want you to come up here, man, and audition for the Spinners and blah blah blah. So I drove up there with my drums in the back of the car, and there's a studio called Ziggy Johnson Dance Studio right next to one of Motown's studios, and so on Woburn Avenue or something like that. So I got out and put my drums in the studio, and they put on some records for me to practice play with. So that's how I learned how to play in the first place. I used to practice with records all the time anyway, so it wasn't nothing new to me to keep the timing and all that. So after I got to doing it, they said, "Oh wow, man, we want you to be in the. We want to hire you, but we don't have no gigs yet, and we just got released from Motown, so we trying to get ourselves together." So I said, "Cool." So I went back to Cincinnati and I hooked up with a band called Power, and we moved up in Toledo, Ohio, and we made a movie called Black Jesus. And then later on, we went back to Detroit with the Spinners, and they didn't have no real gigs. So this guy named Billy Henderson, one of the little short fat guy in the Spinners, he turned me on to this woman named Laura Lee. And Laura Lee had a song called "Since I Fell for You" and "Stand Up for Your Love Right." And she was going with Al Green at the time. So we hooked up with her to be her backup band, and we played with her for a while, and then the Spinners got a deal with Aretha to be her opening act on her tour because she was doing upper state New York and stuff. A lot of colleges, black colleges up in New York. So the Spinners went on tour with her, and that's when I started playing with her with the Spinners again. And then Aretha got them a deal with Atlantic Records, and that's when they hooked them up with Tom Bell, and they came out with "Could It Be I Falling in Love, I'll Be Around," and all that kind of stuff. I stayed with them for about 3 or 4 years, and then I came back to Cincinnati, and then hooked up with Boosie and them again, and then I ended up playing with a band that George and Boosie produced called Sweat Band, and Mazio Parker was a horn player, and Larry Hatcher was a trumpet player, and Razor Sharp was the keyboard player, and David Chong was the keyboard player, and Kevin Oliver was a guitar player, and a brother named Mike Mitchell from Cincinnati was the bass player, and I was playing drums, and they had a dude named Butch Small playing congas that was supposed to be part of the band, the leaders, and then we had this girl group called God Mama that Boosie produced, and they were singing background behind us while we was on tour. And that was the last group I played with Boosie and them was yeah, with Sweatband with Mazo and them, and then I just went on back to Cincinnati and just started playing with a lot of local groups and stuff, just making some money on the weekend.
Oh wow, man, that's amazing. You got to play with the Spinners. Now you mentioned something about Black Jesus. It was a movie.
Yeah, we made a movie. The band that I hooked up together called Power. Uh, uh, I can't think the dude name was Ben Starr. We recorded a record behind him, and his mom and them own a movie theater in Toledo, Ohio, and that's how we hooked up with them. And they gave us a house to live in. So at this one particular time, they was making a movie called Black Jesus, but it was about a lot of entertainment. You know, it was almost like uh, it was like a festival of music, but it was on stage, and it was different groups, gospel groups, uh, different bands, and we played two songs on the movie. I sung "My Mind Going Through Them Changes" by who was the brother play drums? Not Billy Cobham. Yeah, Billy. Not Billy Cobham, but anyway, I did that song. We did another song, and we had a girl named Sybil Thrasher who was in the band. But when we hooked up with Laura Lee, she didn't want Sybil in the band, so we had to send Sybil back to Cincinnati, and we just toured with Laura with Al Green and the Bart Caves and Rufus Thomas. We toured with them for about 4 months, and then got back with the Spinners. The band broke up, and half the band went with Laura Lee, and the other half of the band went with the Spinners. I was the half of the band that went with the Spinners, and the other half that went with Laura Lee. They made a movie called Detroit 9,000 or Detroit 5,000. They made a movie. There was a band playing in the club, you know. So it was cool. I mean, we made a lot of money, man. We traveled a lot. I mean, a whole lot, you know. But
Wow.
Boosie was never in charge of nothing. I mean, he tell a lot of stories and people believe that junk, but he was really never in charge. Like he was never the band leader. And when we was the pacemakers, he was never the band leader when we was the house guests. You know, after we quit James. So I don't understand why people believe that stuff. That he was the youngest cat in the band, and we would make him the band leader. You know, and his brother Catfish was a better bass player than Boosie. Cause Boosie wanted to be like his older brother. He
Right.
always say that. He always say that. He said he wanted to be like his brother. You know, he snuck and played on his guitar and all that kind of stuff. But Catfish was a bass player. He wasn't no guitar player. But that's why he was so good in playing chinks. When you hear them chink, chinky, chink, 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 because that's how he knew how to play in chords and structures like that. And that's what made our band so tight because he played a lot of chord structure. Boosie played a simple pattern. I played syncopation beat, and we all. I mean, it was like a cookie mix. We mixed it all together, and we came out with a good cookie, man. I mean, we had the tightest rhythm section for a long time, you know. And we used to hang out with Sugarfoot and them, the Ohio player Marsha and them. So we all hung together, you know. Roger and them used to come down, and we all hung together, man. So it wasn't nothing. I mean, Ohio funk was just there. Plus, I think the main thing that we had going more so than anything, because most of us didn't know how to read music and stuff like that, but we had the love for each other. And then we did everything together. We fished together, we hung out together, we did things, we rehearsed every day. So all it did was make us tighter. The more you practice, the better you get. So that was our thing. We practiced a lot, man, and that's why James loved us because we changed his whole floor mat of music. Listen to the music. Listen from the time that before he recorded Cold Sweat. Listen to all that shuffleboard junk they was doing, and then when we came out with Cold Sweat, and then Sex Machine and Give It Up to Turn Loose, and uh, there was a time, man, Popcorn. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Man, we changed this whole thing.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, King, for sharing all of that information. I truly appreciate you. I'm gonna definitely have to go back and check out
Wait a
a
minute,
lot of those records.
let me tell you this one cold story. You know,
Okay. Okay.
we wasn't making a lot of money with James. When we got with James, I think we was making like $150 a piece for a week. Which we thought was a lot of money back then. And then later on, when we got with James and we started making money with him, he raised our paycheck to $250 a week. But he was taking out $105 every week out of our paycheck, telling us that he was taking it out for taxes. But he wasn't even paying no taxes. So, we ended up still making like less money because he took $105 out the 250 he gave us. So we all end up with less than 150. We end up with $145 every week, and we played 4 or 5 days a week, man. Sometimes 3 shows a day, especially when we was in New York at the Apollo Theater. We used to play 3 shows a day. So it was weird, James get a lot of credit, and he was a great businessman, and and he did a lot for black people. I mean, he taught us from being young teenagers to be young adults, because a lot of stuff we didn't know till we got with James, and he taught us a lot of stuff, But at the same time, he also took advantage of people too, So it ain't
Yeah,
like, people read stuff and hear stuff and they believe most of the stuff that they read and hear, but it ain't necessarily so. You know what I'm saying? Some stuff that you read and some stuff that you hear out of people's mouth, it ain't necessarily so the truth. It ain't really the truth. And most people tell lies, and they once they tell a lie, they got to keep on telling lies to cover up that other lie. You know?
yeah, definitely. Now I can ask you a question. It
Sure.
seemed like over the years, like each decade, the black artists, we make the bulk of the music, but we always get like, we don't get paid properly. Like even today in hip hop, you got rappers coming out and they're like, man, I didn't get no royalty check, or I didn't get my publishing, or this or that. Do you, what is your perspective on that? Is it a way that we could break that cycle, or what is it that's keeping us in those positions? Like you say, y'all creating the bulk of the music, but you only getting $100 a week or $150 a week when you should be getting a lot more, because it's enough money to pay everybody. So it's not like the money's not there.
Well,
But
some
I just
people,
wanted to speak to that.
I noticed when I was coming up playing music with different cats, the more power and the more money they get, the more selfish they are. I mean, in some groups you see where they all share the money together. Down whoever wrote whatever song and whatever royalties they got, they all split the royalties equally. You know, but with other groups, they get greedy. They get selfish and they get greedy. And at one point, like when we first started out playing music, let me show you this example. When we first started out playing music, we all played and hung in the same hotel together. As a person got bigger and bigger and became, I guess, a superstar, they start staying in other hotels and not staying in the same hotel we stayed in. Then, instead of riding on a tour bus like we used to ride on, they had their own private bus or they flew. And we had to fly. We had to ride days to get where we had to go. And they got there in hours, and rested and relaxed. So it changes. People, they the way they think and treat people. We should all be able to share the pie. We all should be able to get a slice of that pie, but they don't. Some people don't feel that way, and it's sad that they are, and it's a lot blacks that do it to each other, man. It ain't just necessarily the white person did it and this or that. It'd be a lot of people that's in leaders groups, and they become superstars or whatever you call them, and they become greedy and they don't want to share it with nobody no more, you know. And it's crazy. I mean, really. One time, let me say this about Boosie. I had went to hair school for a year and learned how to do hair because I figured, well, hey, damn, if I'm on the road, I can do everybody, curls, process, or whatever, cut their hair, and I can make this extra money on the side. So one day Boosie came to my house when I used to always do his hair and catfish hair and his mama hair and his sister. So Boosie used to come and get his hair done. I dye his hair and put a curl in it and stuff like that. So one day he came to me and he said, "Hey Bob, we getting ready to go to Japan." And he said, he said, I want you to come on, go with us, and I won't pay you. What he told me? He told me he's gonna pay me $350 a night. And as I was doing his hair, I was thinking like, damn, this cat, he's so deep. He didn't ask me if I wanted to do the gig, and second, he didn't ask me how much I wanted to get paid to do the gig. So when he told me he was gonna pay me $350 a night, my wife looked at me and said, "Well, that's a decent paycheck." I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "But you know what, Boosie?" Because I used to call him Baby. I said, "You know what, baby?" I said, "Man, I was thinking, I think I should get $500 a night, instead of 350, and my per diem. And he didn't say nothing. So as I did his hair, he left, and me and my wife went to the store and came back. There was an envelope in the mailbox. And I was like, damn, the mail already ran. Who put an envelope in our mailbox? I get the mail out, the letter out, and it's from Boosie. It's a 3-page letter telling me that it wasn't in his budget to pay me $500 a month. And he thought $350 was generous. But at the same time, I thought, well, damn, you know what? Even though you Boosie Rubber Band, I started this project with me, you, and your brother together. I thought I should get a little bit more money, but evidently he didn't feel the same way. So I don't know how you can change that from black people mistreating black people, because it ain't always the white person mistreating black people. Black people also mistreat each other, you know. And once they get that power of making money and the power of being a superstar or whatever you call them, they change. Their attitude changed, the way they live and act and everything changes. And then they start wanting to treat you like, see, Boosie wanted to start treating everybody like James Brown used to treat everybody because he was in the leader position. You know what I'm saying? Because James did that to people. You know, the way James got big, the Flames hired James Brown to be their lead singer. They was already famous. So when they recorded Please, 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 James Brown told the A&R man to put on the record label James Brown featuring the Flames. So when the record came out and started playing, they was gonna pull the record off the market, but it was selling too hot for them to pull it off because they left it the way it was. And that's how James became the leader of the Flames who hired him in the first place. And Bobby Bird was part of that group. So what James did in the long run, he got rid of the Flames. He got rid of them, and the only person he kept out the Flames was Bobby Bird as his side man. They all do some crazy stuff, man. When you really get into the history of this stuff and how people are, man, it's crazy, man. Because I always thought we all, when I first started playing music, I was just happy that somebody said, "Tiger, come on, man, let's jam." And I was happy to jam. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about nothing else. But when a mug paid me some money to play, and I'm like, well, damn, this is nice. I'm getting paid to do something that I enjoy doing. So, I mean, that changed the whole perspective. But at the same time, you when you start out playing music, you just do it because you enjoy playing music, the love of music. It ain't about the money or the fame, because don't none of that shit last. Don't none of the stardom and the money thing. Eventually, it runs out. You know. So all you really got is what you love, and what you love is to play music. So that's what we had. That's what me and Boosie and Catfish had when we got together. We didn't know how to read no music, and we didn't know how to read no charts and all that kind of. But we had the love to playing music together. That we played and played until we was one of the tightest rhythm sections out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And that's why James hired us, you know, and that's why Charles Spurler hired us because we was tight. And as things went on, we got better and better and better, man. That's all. And it's sort of hard to see how it's gonna change for it because they all get screwed. We all get screwed in some kind of formal way. You know, I remember it's a cat named Wilbur Longmire that played jazz guitar in Cincinnati. And I remember one time he said, Tiger, come on, I got a gig. I want you to play. And I was like, cool, man. So he said, I'll pay you $125 to play the gig. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's cool. Then he hired some more cats and he offered them $150. But I couldn't get mad at him for the $125 because that's what I accepted. And that's what most cats do in most of the business. We accept what we get paid, man. You know, it ain't what we should get paid, but we accept it because it's a job. It's money, and we getting paid to do it. But it's hard to say how things gonna change for us, man. People getting screwed around. Even the guys that the top rappers, they screw the other rappers around. You know, even when they hire them to work at their company or studio, they still screw them around. And then, but a few, it's to be a lot of one hit wonders that had one hit, and then you don't hear them no more. You know, they either run their ass back to gospel, or they don't even play. They just stop playing at all. You know, because the music business is horrible, man. Once you get into it, it's really sad. It really is. But I love music, and I know everybody that plays it had to love it too. But it's just sad how it turns out, you know. And look at Boosie. Boosie had one hit. He had one hit called "I'd Rather Be With You." Do you know he didn't write that song? You know who wrote that song? A brother named Gary Mudbone Cooper. That was one of the singers in the Rubber Band that came from Baltimore, Maryland. He wrote that song. And Boosie got all the money for that song for 20 years because he made a deal with Mudbone to get the rights of the song. And Mudbone didn't get none of that money. And he the one who wrote the song. The dude named Razor Sharp Johnson, that was the keyboard player in Boosie Band. He wrote a lot of songs like Body Slam and a lot of stuff like that. You think he had a house, a car, and stuff when he made all that money? Man, that motherfucker was living over top of a club on the second floor in a furnished apartment, and he didn't have no transportation. And you know what Boosie told him to do? He asked Boosie to help him. Boosie told him to get on welfare and get food stamps. And that's just between me and you, bro. That's how people are, man. They sad. But, you know, that's how it is sometimes, you know. You take the bitter with the sweet, you have more good moments than you have bad moments. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And that's the thing, man. And then plus you got to love what you do in order for you to do what you love. You know what I mean? If you don't love
Yeah.
what you do, how you gonna enjoy doing it? So you gotta enjoy doing what you're doing, you know, and it just becomes fun, man. It ain't about the being popular, you know, and being on a pedestal and being this and that. You know, because when I first started playing music, I never thought about being famous. You know, I thought about, you know, cats in the neighborhood want me to play with them, something like that. But I mean, as far as worldwide, and having a fan club and you know, and all that kind of stuff, I never thought about nothing like that. You know, all I thought about was having fun and playing music. You know, and that's how it was with me and Boosie and Cat. I think we just loved each other, man, as a family, and it showed in the music. You know what? That's what I'm gonna say. We had so much love for each other at that time that it just showed in the music. You know?
Oh, wow, wow. I want to thank you, King. Most definitely. I know them games about to come on, so I truly appreciate you. It's been an honor. And like I say, I'm gonna do my homework and go back and check out some of these records. Some of them I'm familiar with, but I'm definitely excited to check them out. Most
Yeah,
definitely, and I
yeah. Check
appreciate
them
you.
out, man. You know, and for real, seriously, listen to the Big Payback. Cause when James made that record, he was talking about us. He was talking about us quitting him, messing with his money. Cause you know, he had 2 weeks at the Copacabana, and we just did 1 week. So they took away that money when he couldn't fulfill that second week.
Mm-mm-mm. All right now.
But hey, man, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. My brother said you was the real deal. He said, Tiger. He's the real deal, man. I enjoy talking to him, man. I said, okay, Angelo. I'm like, cool.
Right, right. We did a great interview as well. I'm thankful for both of y'all, man. Everything y'all have done and even giving me an opportunity to help, help me progress with what I'm doing.
And listen, I hope it helped, man, for real, because I like to just be truthful, man. I'm 72 years old. When I first started playing drums, I was 16 years old.
Wow.
I turned my
Hey.
friend, listen, my friend named Frank Waddy, he the drummer on Bootsie Rubber Band. I'm the one gave him that job. When I quit Boosie and them, I came back home. Frank was playing with a band called 400 Years of What. I went around the corner and said, Frank, you want to play with Boosie? He said, yeah, man, I play with him. I said, okay, I'm going to take your place with 400 Years of What, and you take my place with Boosie and them. And that's how he became a rubber band. Boosie
Mm.
never hired Frank, but me and Frank grew up together. Me and Frank was in high school together. So he was one of my best friends. He was playing drums long before I even thought about playing drums. And then once I started playing drums, Frank was one of the cats that helped me learn how to play stuff. You know,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
but check out Charles Sperling. Check out all the stuff that he recorded. Junior McCann and this one girl made a song called "Ball of Fire." And then, like I said, Hank Ballard, his last album, he had a song called "How You Gonna Get Respect When You Haven't Cut Your Process Yet." I did the same beat on Lick and Stick. I did the same beat on that record as I did on Lick and Stick. I say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And
Hmm.
Marva Whitney, uh, check out her last album with James. You know, Bobby Bird, I Need Help. Check out that record because we made his record. We made Bobby Bird some money. Vicky Anderson, we played a lot of stuff behind her. James, we did a lot of stuff behind James. Like I said, we do recorded Arthur Prysock. I want to go where the soul trees grow. I mean, we did a lot of stuff at King Records. I mean, everything that came out of King, a lot of stuff that we recorded at King Records, Christmas songs and all kind of stuff. But it was been a pleasure, man. I mean, I'd talk your head off if I had a chance, but I enjoyed the conversation, man. I hope you learned something from it too.
Yeah, man. I'm still processing it now, and I'm gonna go through these, and when the episodes is ready, I'll definitely email them to you, and you can check it out.
Thank you, bro. You have a blessed day.
All right, King. Take care.
In
Peace.
a minute.